I would like to start and to give a very warm welcome from my side to our webinar today. It is a pleasure to see so many joining and more that are joining right now. So yes, today we have a webinar with the EBRD to learn about the business opportunities with the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. And today we will be focusing on three sectors as announced, on manufacturing and services, agribusiness and energy. And the webinar is for our Austrian companies to learn a little bit more on how to cooperate, how to work with the EBRD, about projects that are in the pipeline or projects that also have been completed already, how they work, and opportunities, of course, that can emerge from their operations. My name is Isabel Schmidbauer. I'm part of Netzwerk Projekte International, which is part of the arm of foreign trade of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. So our team is the contact point with international financial institutions, among other topics that we're in charge of. So if you should need support with international financial institutions, please feel free to reach out. So before we then really start with the webinar, I would allow me some remarks with regards to how we structured it and how we were going to go through the webinar. The webinar is going to be moderated by Ms. Aymana Hoskins, that you can see already now on your screens to your left. You will have the possibility to ask questions throughout the webinar through the chat function. We will then collect all of the questions and we will then answer them at the Q&A at the end. Should there be more in-depth questions or questions that would require a long answer, we normally do that afterwards via email. And of course, all of the slides of today will be shared via email with all of the participants. So there's no need to take any screenshots or similar. Before I hand over to Aymana, I would like to thank the EBRD. We have an excellent cooperation we've had for the last year, especially Sillard, with whom I've been doing now. I think this is our third webinar, so thank you so much. And of course, also I would like to thank today's speakers for their time, for joining us today and for sharing their knowledge. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Aymana Hoskins to our participants, who will be moderating today's webinar. Aymana is the principal with the business development team at the EBRD, where she covers bank business development efforts in the shareholder and non-shareholder member countries such as India, Nordic countries, and also Singapore. Aymana also coordinates the bank's engagement with the World Economic Forum, and she has more than 15 years experience in business development, financing, and investing in emerging markets and transition economies. Aymana, over to you.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for the introduction. Please allow me also to welcome our guests attending today. I can see that we have quite good numbers already. First of all, I would like to say a couple of words about our cooperation with the Austrian Chamber of Commerce. We are delighted to have WKO as one of our valued partners, and as Isabel mentioned, this is our third webinar, so it's good to see that our cooperation is going from strength to strength. And in addition to that, obviously, we as a bank, we are very keen to increase our engagement with Austrian companies. And we have, over the years, we have supported a number of Austrian companies who were looking to expand into EBRD region. And to just name a few, these were Wienerberger, Billa, Rewe, Egger, Gebruder Weiss, and many others. So obviously we would like to do more, and that's why we keep engaging with companies who have a potential interest in our countries of operations. So please allow me now to introduce speakers. We have a brilliant lineup this morning. So I will start with our first speaker, Claudia Kobler. Claudia is advisor to the director for Austria, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Cyprus, Israel, Kazakhstan, and Malta. Claudia is based in London HQ. Then we have Charlotte Ruhe. Charlotte is Managing Director covering a very big region, Central and Southeastern Europe. Charlotte is also based in London. We have Maciej Vargin, who is an associate banker from manufacturing and services, and Maciej is based in Warsaw. We have Elena Erker, who is Associate Director, Senior Banker, Agribusiness Team, and Elena is also based in London. We also have representing Team Energy at the EBRD, we have Julien Maudoui, who is Regional Head responsible for Energy Europe. Julien is based in London. And we have Sang-An Yoon, who is a Principal Banker based in London. Now, please, without any further ado, allow me to hand over to Claudia for her presentation. Claudia, over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. Good morning. And thank you so much, Aymana, for the introduction. Thank you very much for the team at the Austrian Chamber of Commerce for putting this webinar together today. And I would like to welcome all of you participants at the webinar today, along with my colleagues from the Ministry of Finance who are based in Vienna. Now, I'm not the main speaker here today, so my real job is to talk a bit about what EBRD in Austria are actually doing, what the history of the EBRD is, and what the Austrian Constituency Office is all made of. Then afterwards, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what of our kind of regions of operations are, and then I would like to close off with a very quick overview of what EBRD has done in the context of Ukraine at the moment, and then close off of what some of our multilateral and bilateral trust funds between Austria and the EBRD are. So as mentioned by Ms. Schmidt-Bauer and Aymana as well, my name is Claudia Körbler. I am Austrian. I am the Austrian advisor to the Austrian Executive Director for the countries of Austria, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Cyprus, Israel, Kazakhstan, and Malta. With this being said, Silla, next slide, please. I'll talk a bit about the history of the EBRD, which I'm sure it's something you might be interested in. And the EBRD was established to help build a new post-Cold War era in Central and Eastern Europe. And it has since played a historic role and has gained quite a unique expertise in fostering change in the region and beyond. And why am I saying in the region and beyond? It is because EBRD has since spread to more than 35 member countries all over the globe, which does not only include Central and Eastern Europe.
Claudia?
Yes?
Claudia, I am very sorry. I'm very sorry to interrupt, but apparently some of our participants can see the presentations but cannot hear the slides, so that's why I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would like to see if this is maybe just some of our participants or more, and I would like to ask our technical support Jessica to look into it, please, because we've had some of our participants explaining that to us in the chat.
Honestly, I'm not sure what the issue is right now, but we will look into it.
Okay, so for those that I'm very sorry. So no one is in screen, but others can see and hear. So apparently this does not affect all of our participants. So then as this does not seem to affect all of them, please, those that cannot hear, check your own technical check it from your side, please. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry that I interrupted you, Claudia. I just wanted to make sure that this is not a general technical issue, because of course we want our companies to hear what you're saying. So please continue. Thank you.
Absolutely no worries, but let me maybe introduce myself again. My name is Claudia Körbler. I'm the Austrian advisor at the Austrian Constituency Office, and we share our constituency office with different countries. So it is Austria, Cyprus, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Israel, Malta, and Kazakhstan. Maybe then let me just dive back a little bit to talk about the history of the EBRD. And what I've mentioned is the EBRD was established to help build a new post-Cold War era in Central and Eastern Europe. And it has since really played a historic role and gained quite unique expertise in fostering change in the region and beyond. And why am I saying in the region and beyond is because since then the EBRD has not only been active in these regions, but also beyond in regions such as Summit, for example. So how does the idea come about to create a bank for a European Bank for Reconstruction and Development? The idea came about in roughly 1989 by back then the French president, who wanted to help build those post-communism countries up again and make them somewhat market ready, not only for the private sector, but for governmental reforms as well. And then justament in April 1991, the EBRD opened up its HQ back in our old location, Liverpool Street. Why am I saying old location? Because the EBRD has moved last year from our location downtown in Liverpool Street to Canary Wharf, so we can be closer to where all of the other banks and the financial center is in London itself. Of course, like every other organization, we have a governance structure as well. So we have a president who is currently French. Her name is Odile Renaud-Basson, and the president is elected by the board of governors. She chairs the meetings of the board of directors and casts a deciding vote in case of any equal division. That goes on a strategic level, but goes on a project or board level as well. So who are the board of governors? The board of governors is 73 in total, and they're the finance ministers of the respective countries. And some of them are being represented by 23 board of directors, so executive directors who are based in HQ, namely Austria as an executive director in our office as well. Who are the member countries? We have 71 member countries, plus the institution European Union, plus the institution European Investment Bank, 38 recipient countries, and 35 donor countries. Who are the biggest shareholders? The biggest shareholders with the biggest capital share are the United States with 10.1%, followed by the countries of Japan, UK, France, and Germany, which have an equal divide of 8.6%, and EU, EIB, and the EU member countries make up 54.4%. Austrian constituency office, maybe just briefly to our office. Austria has been part of the EBRD since inception, so to speak, we joined in 1992. And our office is made up by an Austrian executive director, an Austrian advisor, an Israeli alternate director, and our support staff. Salat, if I may, next slide, please. So Austria and the EBRD at a glance. Since 1992, Austria has made available more than 134 million in donor funds. Those are the numbers at the end of 2021. Our capital share is 2.28%, and the joint Austria-EBRD investment at the end of January 2023 stood at 25.5 billion, out of which EBRD finance accounted 14.96 billion, and Austria investment accounted of around 10.54 billion. Now, like every country, we have priority areas or priority regions as well, which in our case is Western Balkan and Eastern Europe. Next slide, please. We said before that we have different countries of operations in different regions. Altogether, the EBRD has more than 35 countries of operations, which are specified in regions. We have the Baltic states here, under which the Czech Republic is a member country as well. And maybe worth noting here, the Czech Republic is actually only country out of the EBRD which has graduated back in 2007, which means that the EBRD had no need to do any investment in the country anymore because it has basically economically matured out of our program. However, back in 2021 is when the coronavirus and the pandemic hit its peak. The government has requested the EBRD to start investing in the country again, which the EBRD has done and will do so for an allotted period of time. Then we have Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. Here worth mentioning as well that we have a West Bank and Gaza Trust Fund, which comes out of our West Bank and Gaza net income allocation. Southeastern Europe, which part of it are the Western Balkans as well, are our priority areas. Eastern Europe and the Caucasus, and Central Asia, which what I hear is the priority areas for understanding how Austrian businesses can do business in those regions today. Worth mentioning as well is for the Russian Federation and Belarus, EBRD has stopped any new project in Russia back in 2014 after the Russian annexation of part of the Crimea Peninsula, and has done the same in 2020 after the presidential election in Belarus. Now, fast forward after February 24th, 2022, the EBRD Board of Governors has evoked Article 8.3, which means that no investments are being done in Russia and Belarus anymore, and more so there is a divestment of our portfolio which is done out of these regions. That's the reason why they're marked in asterisks in the presentation as well. Next slide, please. Now, I think it's also really important to get an idea of how an organization, being it an IFI or any other business, is doing, is to understand what do our numbers actually look like. And for that, I'd like to talk about our ABI, which is our annual bank investment. In German, it's Geschäftsvolumen, our GET and private sector share. So our ABI reached 13.1 billion in 2022, which is kind of record-breaking given of how difficult and transcendent this year was. Our green economy investment accounted for a record 50% of a total of financing. And reason for that is that since January 1st, 2023, all projects at the EBRD, and EBRD is one of the first leading IFIs in this space, needs to be Paris aligned. So this means about 50% of our operations and our projects in 2022 have already achieved to do that. As many of you know, and I'm sure there's some of you on here who have done more webinars with the EBRD already, the EBRD is a private sector bank or private sector focused bank. So for us, the private sector share is something that we look at very critically, and our private sector share stood at 74% in 2022, which is very positive and record-breaking as well. Silak, next slide, please. So I don't want to talk about it too much because I understand this is being picked up in the presentations which are about to come. But what has EBRD's role in Ukraine been in 2022? What is EBRD's role moving forward going to be? So EBRD has committed to invest up to 3 billion by the end of 2023 in Ukraine. Now, this has been 1.7 billion deployed in 2022 already, including 200 million mobilized from partner financial institutions. And why is this record-breaking or groundbreaking for many IFIs? Is because EBRD is taking 50% of the risk out of our own balance sheet. Most of these investments are being done under our resilience and livelihood framework, which is somewhat of our crisis response for Ukraine. But other investments are being done from our donor support as well. So I'd like to mention two worth mentioning examples here. And one is that Norway has provided 2 billion Norwegian crowns in grants for Ukraine's Naftogaz. And that was critical to keep the heat on during the winterization months in Ukraine. And Netherlands has invested 370 million for Ukraine's electricity company, Ukralenica. Now, closing off what EBRD's role in Ukraine is, I may go ahead to my last slide, which will talk about Austria's priority areas in terms of trust funds at the EBRD. So what are our thematic areas? So we have multi-donor partnerships, multi-donor trust funds, and bilateral funds as well. The latest one, or the youngest one that we have invested in, a good amount of around 10 million euros, is the UMDA, the Ukraine Stabilization and Sustainable Growth Multi-Donor Account, which is a multi-donor partnership which was already a while ago established to support Ukraine's effort to reform its economy, improve its business climate, and really restore sustainable growth as well. So the projects that are supported by the MDA are the Ombudsman Council, or, for example, the Ukraine Reform Architecture Program as well, which helps to build up reform inside the government, which will also help Ukraine right now in their endeavors for the EU accession program too. Now, of course, climate change is incredibly important for Austria as well, and hence we've been one of the founding donors, so to speak, for the High Impact Partnership on Climate Action under the COP27 in Glasgow, which is a multi-donor partnership to tackle climate change and environmental degradation. And this spans over many regions. Of course, Austria focuses on the regions of Western Balkan and some projects in Central Asia as well. But it is imperative that Austria is on the pulse of time for our regions and our neighboring countries here as well. Now we have bilateral funds as well. One of them is to create our city regeneration, our environmental fund, and this one supports municipal infrastructure engagement with high transition impact. Some of our flagship programs are here in Sarajevo, for example, or our renewable district energy in the Western Balkan. As you can hear from the name already, the priority area is Western Balkan here, which focuses on the development of renewable district energy project by policy and technical cooperation. Now, if my clock does not prove me wrong, this should have been around 9 to 10 minutes at the moment, and I hope I was able to give you a broad overview of what Austria and the EBRD are doing. And I want to say herzlichen Dank fürs Zuhören, für Ihre Geduld, and thank you very much for your attention, and hand over to the other speakers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Claudia, for this excellent overview and underlining the importance of Austria in the work of that EBRD is doing. Please now allow me to hand over to our Managing Director for Central and Southeastern Europe, Charlotte Rowe. Charlotte, please, over to you.
Thank you, Aymana. It's a pleasure to be here today, and good morning to everyone. I'm just trying to manipulate the slides. So I'd like to start with a brief economic outlook. In 2022, the economies of the EBRD European Union member state countries of operation proved to be more resilient than anticipated at the onset of Russia's war on Ukraine. At the end of 2022, economic activity remained stable, with employment rates high, especially in the countries receiving a large number of refugees from Ukraine, particularly Poland. In 2023, a technical recession is anticipated over the winter, driven by falling purchasing power, weakening demand from Western Europe, and elevated financing costs. Companies are expected to reduce further their inventories built up in the COVID period, with destocking contributing to a deceleration in GDP growth throughout the EU region. Substantially elevated inflation rates are anticipated to pass their peak in most countries by the end of this quarter. While risks related to a severe winter have passed, markets expect commodity prices to remain high relative to the pre-COVID period. The final year for EU funds absorption from the previous budget and fresh inflows from the Recovery and Resilience Funds money will boost public sector investment, especially in green investment and digital economy projects. So this is, I need to go back to the previous slide. Thank you. For the EBRD in Croatia, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, and Slovenia, in recent years, we saw a stable business delivery across these countries, on average around $1 billion a year. But in 2022, we doubled our delivery in these 6 countries, reflecting our efforts to support the countries against the challenges brought on by the Russian war on Ukraine. 2022 was a remarkable year for the bank as a whole, as you've already heard from Claudia, with our business surpassing 13 billion euros. And at 2 billion euros, investment delivery in these 6 countries constituted 15% of the bank's total annual investment. While it was also one of our best investment years in Slovenia, Hungary, and Poland. Our green economy investments made up 75% of the total investment in 2022 for these 6 countries, compared to 50% on average for the bank as a whole. We are now at 26 billion euros of total investment in the 6 countries, while the current portfolio is over 7 billion. The sectoral composition of the region's portfolio is 43% industry, commerce, and agribusiness, 32% financial institutions, and 25% sustainable infrastructure, I would say with a strong tilt towards energy. Our equity portfolio is 19% of the total, compared to 13% for the bank's average. Private sector share of the EU6 portfolio is 92%, but with the exception of Croatia, it is 100% or very close in the other countries. Now, the EBRD and the war on Ukraine. When the war started, the bank established a resilience and livelihoods framework, primarily targeted at Ukraine and its people. At the same time, we wanted to support the neighboring countries, taking in refugees and providing other support to Ukraine. And we are doing so by financing projects for energy security, municipal services and livelihoods for displaced persons, capital markets, and provision of liquidity for small and medium-sized enterprises. Some highlights of the RLF delivery in the countries include the following: a revolving working capital loan to Petrol, a leading energy supplier in Slovenia, investment in the commercial paper of Gen-E, an integrated supplier and trader of electricity and natural gas, and a provider of green energy services in Slovenia and Southeast Europe, a loan to Resi for Rent in Poland for financing development and operation of a pipeline of rental apartments, affordable housing, across Poland to improve the situation, which was exacerbated by the inflow of Ukrainian refugees. And Regional Grain Alliance, a loan to the Slovakian subsidiary of the Grain Alliance Group to finance the upgrade and expansion of storage and transshipment capacity of a grain terminal and purchase of trucks and locomotives in Slovakia and grain hoppers in Ukraine. Trying to get to the next slide, please. We go back one. Next one, please. Okay, there we are. Thank you. So these are our strategic priorities and the sort of investment opportunities for EBRD in the EU countries more broadly, but especially in these 6 countries. We are focused on capital markets, energy, and the private sector. In the capital markets, we are generally investing in market deals that are priced commercially, where we crowd in private investors, and we have impact on the real economy via dedicated use of proceeds. I'm going to leave aside the energy sector because Julian is going to cover that later. On industry, our focus is on supporting the green economy transition across our countries of operation to deliver greater levels of investment in energy efficiency, other resource efficiency, one example being our debt and equity investment in a global battery recycling company called Elemental in Poland, or our support to green finance issuances of corporates such as Cyfrowy Polsat in the telecoms. It's a telecoms and energy private group in Poland. Another focus is the electrification of transport along the entire value chain. We want to do more equity, and we also support medium-sized companies to grow, innovate, and become more global. Our current pipeline is very promising and on a par in terms of volumes with the business we did last year. We have a strong relationship with Austrian banks in this region and more broadly. Addiko, Erste, and RBI are key partners of EBRD in the Western Balkans and in Central Europe. Our cooperation spans through a large range of instruments, including trade finance, special purpose credit lines, investments in capital markets instruments, and equity. We also use equity funds as an important intermediating instrument to reach smaller companies than EBRD can invest in ourselves, or where funds are taking a majority stake, which we are not able to do. So Central Europe is the deepest market for private equity within the bank's countries of operation, with a number of established multi-generational fund managers operating through the region. The bank provided early stage or capital at an early stage for many of these fund managers when they began operations, and we continue to support them to grow the private equity market across Central and Eastern Europe. The region has a sophisticated private equity ecosystem, able to cover all stages of the spectrum, from startups to mature businesses. Alternative strategies such as mezzanine, private credit, infrastructure, and renewables have grown in importance. The pandemic and the war in Ukraine have accelerated a pre-existing trend of consolidation of players in private equity, with the scale of disruption discouraging new teams from entering the market and severely impacting fundraisers among some established managers as well. CEE fund managers were quick to adopt value protective measures across their portfolios, first in the face of COVID and the war, and then in the face of the war on Ukraine, benefiting from a comparatively low use of leverage and, among established managers, historical experience of crises. During the pandemic, Central Europe also benefited from outperformance of tech-enabled businesses and its increasing clout as a tech hub. Now, I would just like to note that EBRD is an implementing partner for InvestEU, and guarantee products will be available across our EU countries of operation. And finally, we are also working with EU funding opportunities using the RRF, particularly in these countries, in Slovakia, where we will be co-financing RRF grants made available by the Slovak authorities for for energy efficiency investments for over 30,000 single-family houses. With that, I'd like to conclude my remarks. Thank you all for inviting me, and I pass the floor back to Aimana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for this very informative overview of EBRD's activities in the region. I would like to invite Maciej Warcin to deliver his presentation with the focus on manufacturing and services. Maciej, over to you, please.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the manufacturing and services sector, which we call shortly M&S in the bank. This is a very broad and diversified sector, as it covers all the light industrial sectors like pharmaceuticals or paper industry, as well as heavy industries like steel production or chemicals. Additionally, all retail businesses, except for the food retail, also fall in this category. Looking at the size of M&S is relatively small comparing to other sectors in terms of value of investments, which correspond only for roughly 5% of the total value of EBRD investments last year. However, in terms of volume of projects, M&S sector corresponds for more than 10%, which means that M&S does normally many smaller projects, usually in a range of 10 million to 25 million euros. In total, each year M&S closes roughly 50 to 60 projects with the total amount of roughly 900 million euros in the whole sector. And Central Europe is the key region for the sector investments in the bank. Roughly 1/3 of the sector investments are made in this region. And this includes actually both last year investments as well as the whole portfolio, so all the active projects of the bank. Activities in Central Europe are dominated by Poland due to the size of the market, of course, While the EBRD is active in all markets in the region, mainly in Hungary, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Slovakia. In terms of clients, EBRD and M&S sector cooperates with all types of clients. We work with private and listed companies, big names, as well as family-owned small caps. Among biggest names financed by M&S, I can name a few car manufacturers like Ford, GM, PSA or Renault. EBRD has also financed projects with IKEA in Eastern Europe, as well as with few chemical names like Solvay, Air Liquid, or Grupa Azoty, the largest Polish fertilizer producer. In terms of instruments, EBRD in the M&S sector offers a wide range of products. Although most of our projects are senior loans, EBRD also offers subordinated debt and other mezzanine products, participates in local bond issuances, as well as invests in direct equity, either in listed or non-listed companies. In terms of objectives, M&S provides mostly long-term financing for CapEx investments, mainly capacity expansions or modernization of existing facilities, and other initiatives that may boost the competitiveness of local companies. M&S is also highly interested in financing of any R&D expenditures, especially those aimed at developing new competitive products or services. Another key objective is the green transformation of companies in the region, which is extremely important for the sector. EBRD supports such investments like investments in renewable energy sources, construction of energy efficient buildings, warehouses, investments in improving energy efficiency of the production process, as well as expansion of products and services which are aligned with EU taxonomy or which support the transformation into the circular economy. It is also worth to note that EBRD is a partner for good and bad times. EBRD always supports its clients, even in crisis situations when other commercial banks may not be willing to provide financing. Now a quick overview what happened in the region in the M&S sector over the last 5 years. M&S closed roughly 30 projects with total value of more than 1.6 billion euros. These were mostly senior loans, but there were also a few equity transactions, bond projects, even including few Schuldschein bond issuances. Now I would like to show most interesting projects from the region that we did last year. Starting with Poland and with Mabion, it's a $15 million financing for the Polish contract manufacturer of pharmaceuticals and a biotech company. Mabion has recently acquired a large contract to produce COVID vaccines for Novavax. EBRD loan financed capacity expansion required to fulfill the contract. And the project also supported Mabion in the transformation from a pure biotech company with no stable income into a contract manufacturer, as Novavax was actually their first large contract for the manufacturing. Like Charlotte also mentioned, EBRD has recently financed 2 projects with Elemental Holding, leading recycler of auto spent catalyst and electrical waste. One project was a senior loan, while the second one was preferred equity financed together with IFC and Polish Development Fund. EBRD funding will go for the new recycling facility, allowing to recycle old batteries, closing the life cycle of electric vehicle batteries in EU. A part of this project was also a large photovoltaic installation of 37 megawatts on existing plant. Moving to Bulgaria, the most interesting project done there last year was Maxcom. It was not a pure loan, but a guarantee for local banks, who in turn were able to provide more financing to the client. Maxcom is a producer of electric bikes, and loan was aimed to finance inventory to meet the growing demand for electric bikes in EU. Also an interesting example from Romania and from pharmaceutical sector. Donna, a local pharmaceutical group, the funding was used to strengthen its market position through acquisition of licenses and expansion of pharmacy chain, as well as some warehousing equipment. EBRD also does regional projects where funding is spread among various EBRD countries of operation. The example from last year was ETEX, a sustainability-linked Schuldschein issuance. ETEX is a global producer of construction materials. The project will improve energy efficiency and circularity of ETEX operations, as well as will boost the production of construction materials which are aligned with the EU taxonomy. Now, another example from Poland, but the first example of company providing services, not actually manufacturing. Benefit Systems is a Polish Warsaw Stock Exchange listed provider of non-payroll benefits in the CE region. This was also the first project in a region which was mainly focused on the inclusion angle. It supports client in promoting of active lifestyle among all groups of society by offering online platform for exercising, healthy nutrition and well-being. It also supports development of a dedicated sports program for older people and adaptation of fitness clubs that company owns to the needs of disabled people. Additional part of this project was a small photovoltaic installation, which will be built for internal purposes. The last example is Volta from Hungary. EBRD has financed construction of a factory to produce copper foil, which is used in electric vehicle battery production chain. The project additionally supports transformation to circular economy, as a whole production will be done from the scrap copper. And that would be it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maciej, for this overview of what the EBRD is capable and how versatile we can be in the manufacturing and services sector. I would now like to introduce Yelena Erker, whose presentation will focus on our activities and opportunities in the agribusiness sector. Yelena, over to you.
Thank you, Aymana, and good morning, everyone. So I will zoom a bit on agribusiness sector. Sorry, can we go? Perfect. So we like to say that we are one of the single largest private investors in agribusiness sector in most of the countries that EBRD operates in. We currently have a portfolio of around 3 billion, and annually we do approximately 700 to 800 million in investment that are across approximately 50 projects. We cover the entire supply chains, starting from primary agriculture all the way to food retail, including online food delivery and everything in between. We work both with international players such as Lidl, Spar, Heineken, and Olam, as well as local family-owned companies, such as, for instance, Matoni in Czech Republic. We have an extensive client network, and we are both looking to finance both traditional players as well as finance new technologies, organic production, and innovative practices in the region. As examples of projects that we supported in the past, or companies that are actually operating in more innovative segments, is Auga, one of the leading organic producers in the Baltics, and also we supported Rolik, an online food retailer operating out of Czech Republic. In terms of support that EBRD can provide, similar to what my colleagues already mentioned, we are able to support companies across capital structure, starting from debt financing to equity financing and everything in between. Other than CapEx and working capital, we are also able to provide M&A financing. We actually supported quite a few players in Central Europe and in other EBRD countries in their cross-border expansion and M&A, where we, other than equity and debt, also provided mezzanine financing and PIK loans. We have also done this in co-investing together with private equity funds that are operating out of Central and Eastern Europe. In terms of structures, we are quite flexible. We can provide a very long-term financing with repayment profiles completely tailored to the cash flow repayment capacity of the company. Again, as similar to what my colleagues already mentioned, we support companies both in their capital market transactions, IPOs and bond issuances, green bond issuances, Schuldscheins, and over the past few years, we have also done a number of sustainability-linked loans. We, as a sector, have a vast network of bankers across all EBRD geographies. There are around 50 bankers that are working with local companies and are also able to work with local authorities and governments on policy dialogue whenever this is needed. We also have the ability to mobilize donor financing whenever that is needed for particular needs of the projects. In terms of green investments, as a result of regulatory changes and also increasing pressures on that our clients are experiencing when it comes to increasing their sustainability, EBRD also set an objective to have more than 50% of its investments in green investments. Here we are supporting our clients both with financing on one hand, as well as concessional funds, technical support, and policy engagement. In terms of investment opportunities that we are seeing in Central and Eastern Europe, we see this from the purely food perspective. The region has a favorable climate for all the agri-food inputs, and it has access to raw materials. At the same time, there is a very rich history in terms of food production that is also driving skills of people that are employed in the sector. At the same time, we are talking about sizable consumer markets with increasing purchasing power. Clearly, this is being affected with recent macroeconomical developments, but trends are kind of there. There is also still a lot of going around regional integration, and most of the countries are also EU members. In terms of trends and opportunities, which we are seeing as agri-food investors, we see still a lot of potential investments that could go to agriculture production, both modernization, improvement of efficiencies, and also increase in production of higher value-added crops. Number of countries in Central and Eastern Europe can be also used as production export hubs. We are all aware that Poland is one of the largest producers of poultry and many other fruits and vegetables, and one of the largest exporters of those to EU. Number of countries, there is also a lot of potential for further consolidation within subsectors such as food retail, meat and poultry in a number of countries, and so on and so forth. And also where we see a lot of new developments is in new sectors, early movers, disruptors both in food retail and food space, where we are also trying to increasingly invest. So in terms of few selected transactions, I would maybe concentrate on Żabka that we did last year. This is one of the leading convenience food retailers in Poland. The company that we worked on, financed a number of occasions, but concretely last year we did a reverse factoring program with them. Also, Maxima, it's one of the leading food retailers operating in Baltics and in Poland. This is the company that we supported a number of times in their bond issuances, and also in 2021 with the issuance of a commercial paper. Schwarz, you all know very well. This is the company that we supported throughout a number of EBRD geographies, and in more recent years, we supported them in their green agenda. Rolik, I have already mentioned. This is an innovative online food grocery retailer operating out of Czech Republic with presence in Hungary and Austria as well. We provided them with 35 million equity investment that is being used for strengthening their operations in EBRD countries of operation and expansion to foreign markets. We have also supported Spar Poland with CapEx and working capital facility. Eurocash in Poland, we provided them with 50 million loan to support acquisition of an online food retailer in Poland. Finally, we have also supported one of the leading Czech companies, Matoni, in two acquisitions. They undertook one acquisition of bottling facilities from PepsiCo in Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia, as well as their acquisition of Serbian Kňaz Miloš. Auga Group, I have already mentioned, one of the leading companies operating in organic farming, where we provided an equity investment. I will stop here, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Elena. Well, let's now move on to our activities and opportunities in the energy sector. So I would like to invite Julien and Sangan to start their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Emana. Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Julien Mauduit. I'm the regional head for Central and Eastern Europe within the Energy Europe team of the EBRD. Energy is part of, that's the slide I was trying to see, is part of the Sustainable Infrastructure Group of the EBRD, which also includes two other businesses, the Municipality Infrastructure Group and Transport activity. In the energy sector, we focus on the whole energy chain from generation to transportation and distribution with clearly, as it was said earlier by Charlotte, a clear focus on the green energy transition, which means that today most of our activity, over 75%, is renewable oriented, whether it is directly financing renewables or associated infrastructures. We typically invest 1.6 billion on average annually. That has been the case for the last 6 years. We've been investing over 20 billion since the bank has been established in 1991, and our current operating portfolio size is above 10 billion euros. The energy business of the bank is organized around two teams. One is focusing on Eurasia, the Middle East. We are covering a number of countries since the Arabic Spring, and as well Turkey. And our team, which is focusing on all European countries, plus the Western Balkans, Ukraine, and Moldova. We typically cover in our team markets which are a bit more advanced than our sister team. Ukraine is a specific case due to the obvious sad circumstances, and it has been already well presented all what we are doing here. So I'm not going to focus really on Ukraine, which is a very specific case. But typically in our team, we try to, because every time the bank has to do business, we need to find an additionality angle because it's really only when we are needed that we need to step in. We are not there to crowd out any commercial banks or private investors. So typically in our markets, we're focusing on same thing than the other teams. I've heard many capital market transactions, whether it's bonds related, green bonds, sustainable linked bonds, or IPOs. We do private equity or quasi-equity transactions a lot on in these markets. And our bread and butter is obviously long-term project financings of renewables. I think I've said what I wanted, so I'm going to pass the floor to my colleague Sangun, who is going to continue the presentation.
Thank you. So let me give us some general picture of our investment activities. I can say largely we have two pillars in our investment activities. One is supporting the network utilities, and second is the scaling of renewables. And about the first pillar, I believe today's guest is less relevant to this part because this network business is very country specific, regional specific, based on the regional player. However, if there is any business opportunity to invest in the operators or participate in the capital market transaction, we are more than happy to talk for details. But here we would like to bring your attention to that our core activity to this pillar is that we do capacity investments to increase the network capacity and the resilience to absorb more renewables in the grid, so that ultimately we can facilitate the green transition, which is linked to the second pillar, which is scaling of renewables. So here we support developers or generation utilities to develop and build and operate all kind of renewable capacity. And we are very open to all kind of technology, of course, proven after thorough technical due diligence. So such as the solar PV, onshore wind, offshore winds. So we are very flexible, and we provide all kinds of financial products depending on the client's specific needs. So including typical project financing, but also this kind of corporate financing, whether it is direct investments or capital market transactions. So let me give us some more kind of case studies to show some more details later. But here we would like to highlight some of the figures. So we invest more than 7 billion euro to these renewables, especially in the last 2 years. It was 1.2 billion euro, and then it materialized more than 12 gigawatt of renewable capacity in our region. And here we are very flexible in terms of structuring for renewables. So of course we do finance the projects based on the very stable revenue streams based on the government support scheme, but also we are very open to provide financing based on the corporate PPA and merchant risks, and we have a track record there. So we are very familiar with this kind of risks and the structure, and we are more than happy to provide financing and support our clients. So here are some kind of case studies. And the first one is about our last year investments in Poland. As you may know, Poland is very famous for its wind potential, and there were many investments in wind sector. But nowadays, solar is also quickly catching up. So we provided a project financing loan to one of the largest solar power plants in Poland, 285 megawatt. And one key highlight of this project is that it is based on both CFD scheme and merchant basis. So CFD scheme is a government support scheme, which provide a stable revenue stream here, but a part of their revenue also coming from a merchant revenue, which means that they sell electricity to the market, and their revenue is totally depends on the market price fluctuation in the energy market. But we worked very hard to structure these products, and then we financed it. So we brought this kind of project financing structure into the international level, which is already prevalent in Western Europe. Thanks to our efforts, our co-financing partners, so local banks in Poland, they joined the financing club, and we all together supported the German sponsor, Goldbeck. So we materialized this project. And here there is something more innovative component in. So this is a wind project in Croatia. It is more than 100 megawatt. And here the revenue stream is totally out of the government scheme, and it was purely market oriented. So they sell electricity, old electricity to the market. Of course, some of the electricity were hedged through the commercial PPA with the energy traders. But so here, as you may see, we provide the financing to the project level in partnership with the local banks, Zagrebačka banka, and also Croatian development banks. And we supported Taleri, the Finnish investment funds. So yeah, here, as you may see, we were very innovative, and we would like to facilitate the international players to come to our region and invest into renewables, and then unlock the renewable potential in our region and support the green transitions. But here, as you may see, there were some stable revenue streams, CFD or commercial PPA. But I would like to point out that we are more than happy to provide the 100% merchant basis revenue stream based on our commercial due diligence and any other studies. So we are very flexible, and then we are open to very customized financing solutions. And here I would like to show some more cases of corporate financing. Here, I will show two cases, which all of them will be capital market transaction. So here in this case, we subscribed our money into the green bonds issued by a Czech-based renewable developer, Photon Energy. So basically, issuer received the money from us and other investors, and they use that proceeds to invest in the projects in the Poland, Hungary, Romania, and other regions. So basically, they maximized their external financing to accelerate the growth of their pipeline and the operations, and then installation of renewables. And here, this is the equity story. So the renewable developer arm of the Estonian state-owned energy utilities, they went to the market through the IPO, and we supported our client to this successful capital market debut. And with the proceeds from this IPO, NFE Green invested money into the projects in the Central and Eastern Europe, so that they also grew up their pipeline and the operations of the renewables. So this is what we are doing for the moment. And we would like to bring your attention to this slide, which shows what we, EBRD, work with the local government to develop the renewable auction programs. Of course, I said we are more than happy to provide a merchant basis project financing. However, we believe that many investors still want some stable revenue stream for their business, and they are more than keen to participate in the renewable auction schemes. So here you may see many things will come in the short future, this year or next year or in the near future. So please keep your eyes open, so that when the proper business comes, feel free to reach out to us and talk to us. So this is what we do. So basically, last year I went to Bratislava from the Austrian Vienna airport, and I saw the massive wind farms along the highway. So we were very impressed with the massive scale of such wind farms, and we believe that there is a kind of similar opportunities in our country of operations. So we would like to welcome Austrian partners to come to us and then work together to unlock the renewable capacity in our region. So I think this is all from energy sector.
Thank you very much, Sangan and Julian, for this presentation. I would now like to open our Q&A session. I apologize to some of our viewers who had some technical difficulties seeing and also hearing. I hope you'll have some time to type in your questions, and while we're waiting for questions from an audience, I will perhaps ask a couple of my own. I would like to maybe pose my first question to Charlotte. Charlotte?
I'm here.
Hello. I was wondering if you can maybe explain what are the competitive advantages of the EBRD vis-a-vis commercial banks. I think this is probably something that our audience would be interested to hear. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Aymana. Well, first of all, you've heard from the colleagues. The EBRD is able to invest across the entire capital spectrum. So we can come in with a mezzanine product, we can provide senior debt, we can provide straight equity. And I think that that is enormously helpful for our clients when structuring their projects. And I would say for foreign investors, it's very helpful. In countries, I would say that in countries that have higher political risk, EBRD can also be a partner to support you vis-a-vis problems with the authorities. These are countries with strong rule of law where we don't really find issues like that so often. Although I can tell you that in a neighbor to the south, in Romania, we're having a number of issues right now and trying to support our partners in that respect. Then finally, I think that the bank does not price sort of cheaper than the market. We price at the market, but we are very flexible about tenures for debt. And for equity investments, we are there for the long haul through difficult periods. So I would say, Aymana, these are the main reasons why I would suggest that investors look at EBRD rather than commercial banks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Now perhaps I can pose my next question to perhaps to Yelena, Maciej, and Sangan and Julian. We have seen, and you have demonstrated very good selection of projects, investments we can make in the region. If there is a new transaction EBRD is considering, what are the most important aspects for the EBRD you will be looking at? If you, Yelena, perhaps we can start with you. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I would start from the creditworthiness of the company that we are looking at. Again, depending on the instrument, the potential counterpart, i.e., company is looking to obtain from EBRD. We would look at one hand whether they are cash generative, what is the leverage level, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, if we are talking about potential investee company, we would look at the growth prospects for the industry, or the quality, or the quality of the market, i.e., what are the growth rates in the market in that particular sub-segment. That is from purely commercial, i.e. creditworthiness point of view. On the other hand, EBRD is operating, or mandate is revolving around three core pillars: green, inclusive, and digital. So from that point of view, we are looking that each of the transactions need to address one of those challenges when we are investing in a company. So we would definitely do a screening whether projects comply with any of those components, and try to design a project so that on top of commercial benefits for the company, we would also have addressing one of those three core pillars for EBRD. That's kind of in short.
Thank you, Lena. Maciej, perhaps you can maybe add a comment or two from a manufacturing and services perspective. What would you be looking at?
I would say that roughly the same aspects that were just mentioned. First of all, as a standard commercial bank, we would look at the cash generation, leverage, potential security that we can get. And also the key aspect for us is the use of proceeds, how they meet our mission, our targets. So we would look at some potential green investments, elements that are boosting competitiveness of local companies. Any inclusion angles are also pretty interesting and more important for us recently. Yeah, so basically that would be it mostly.
Thank you. And Julien, perhaps I can invite you to maybe add a line or two from energy perspective. Thank you.
I think obviously every business we do, we will have to be compliant with sound banking, so credit worthiness, how we structure it, all of this we will be looking at it. But the first thing which to my view is really important is how it fits with our strategy in the sector. And our strategy in the relevant countries where the operation or transaction will be taking place. And we have strategies for all the countries in which we do operate, and we have obviously sector strategies that we are currently revising and which will be updated by the year end. But I would say that in the current circumstances, how this project is going to serve the energy security angle, the greening of the energy system in the relevant country, and obviously if it is renewable, it's straightforward. Sometimes the cases are not that straightforward, so we will see how this project or the operation we are considering is meaningful, is relevant in that context. I think that's the first step we will be focusing on.
Thank you very much, Julien. We now have some questions from the audience. So the first question from the audience is a comment. Thank you for the excellent presentations. To what extent are EBRD projects subject to EU taxonomy regulations and audits? Perhaps Charlotte, you would like to take that question?
Certainly. Anything that is an EU country is going to eventually be, if it's in the green area, going to be subject to if it's a green bond, it's going to be subject to audits, it's going to be subject to EU regulations. I mean, we're working in EU countries here, so the EU laws and regulations apply.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, at what stage of a project would you like to be involved in order to shorten the process when it comes to the final stage? I would say perhaps Julien. Julien, would you like to take that question?
Sure. I think obviously the earlier the better. It depends on the complexity of the project, and it depends on many aspects, and we always find ways to deliver the business we want to deliver, but obviously typically we need to at least have a project well designed and already prepared so that we can take a view and start working. We have but I would say once you feel that you have a good proposal to put forward, you should not be shy and approach the bank as soon as possible, so we can help you all the way through the process.
Thank you very much. Does any of our speakers would like to add to Julien's response? No. Okay. We will move on to the next questions from an audience. Is EBRD also engaging in startups in the scaling up production processes for new and patented products? I don't know. Perhaps Yelena?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So EBRD has dedicated venture capital arm that is engaging in earlier stage companies. Clearly, none of our colleagues from that team is present here today, but if you have any interesting projects to share with us, as long as they are within EBRD countries of operations, we are happy to share with them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elena. I have, while we're waiting for some more questions, my question perhaps to Charlotte. Charlotte, how do you see the role of the EBRD in the Central and Eastern Europe region for the next 5 to 10 years? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Aymana. That's a very good question. So, as mentioned earlier by Claudia in her introduction, the Czech Republic had graduated from working with EBRD in 2007. Yet, during the disruption of markets, the government requested to return to country of operations status in 2021. This was, well, actually in late 2020, it was agreed by the shareholders. In early 2021, we have a 5-year special mandate in the Czech Republic until March 2026. At the same time, by sort of by the time we reached the summer of 2021, we were getting pressure from certain shareholders that the bank should narrow its business in the most advanced countries, particularly the 3 Baltic states and Hungary, where we were having country strategy discussions at that time. So we actually have prepared an approach that was quite focused and rather narrow for our business, different to Poland, which is a much bigger economy with very big gaps to deal with the energy transition, or different to Croatia, which joined EU later than the other countries that we're talking about today. However, the war changed everything, and our shareholders took money that was intended to support countries on their way to graduate the EBRD. They gave it to Ukraine. This was a post-graduation special fund. And there is quite an acceptance among the shareholders that the bank should be active in the EU member states, the countries that are neighboring Ukraine, for the foreseeable future. Now, we have a very strong business delivery on the back of market disruption as a result of the war and energy security issues. So we had record years last year, as I already mentioned. We have a very strong pipeline this year. I think what happens over the next 5 to 10 years is, of course, also going to be a function of what happens in markets. I'm not so optimistic that we're all going to come through the latest financial sector disruption without some other knock-on effects. So we'll have to see, but I think that the bank is going to be very active in most of these countries for the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. We're returning to the question on taxonomy. So the question is, are taxonomy audits done internally by EBRD auditors, or is EBRD using external auditors? Perhaps, yeah, Charlotte.
You know, I'm not the expert on this topic, so I would actually feel more confident to have someone from our green or from our climate team handle this if the individual who's asking the question would like more detail. But I believe that our clients are the ones who employ the auditors to have an audit report, and they are done externally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. We have another question. Do you also see more requests required project funding in the EU for energy storage systems projects, especially in CEE region? And if so, what is the and sorry, I'm just looking. And if so, is there a tendency preference for technologies? Also, is it okay to get in touch after this presentation for discussion? Absolutely, I think I can answer that question. But perhaps Sagan and Julian could take the question generally.
In terms of storage project, I think it's still at an early stage. We've been approached, and we are currently involved in a number of opportunities across the countries we do cover. I think it's still early stage. We are open to various technologies. Obviously, we need to ensure that the business case is sustainable, viable economically. But if this is the case, then we are really open to any business concept. So we are looking at a number of opportunities. Since it's quite early stage, sometimes it's at least within my sector, the opportunities we're looking at are, for example, more on the equity, quasi-equity kind of product offering, that because of the nature of the business and its maturity. So that's what I know we are currently working on. But obviously, we have a lot of appetite. It's key in our energy strategy, and the one to be updated by the year end. And clearly, we believe that it will be a growing part of the business where we will be delivering in this sector. In terms of manufacturing facilities, maybe my colleague from M&S wants to add a few words, but I'm sure that they would have appetite as well to support this.
Thank you, Julien. Maciej, if you have a comment to add.
Yeah, I confirm that this is something that we have been looking at recently, and we are receiving some queries about investing in such sector, and I definitely agree that this is something that we want to look at, and we really want to invest in such projects.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a question here. Recently, we have noticed more inquiries from Eastern European countries when new steel plants should be built, for example, to deliver steel bars to potential rebuilding of Ukraine and Turkey's earthquake damages. To whom should we talk to for any EBRD support? Well, perhaps I can answer this question. Please send your inquiries to business development team. Isabel can put you in touch with Szilárd, and we will redirect your inquiry to our relevant colleagues. Thank you. I don't know, Charlotte, perhaps you would like to add anything on this question?
No, I think you're right. That's absolutely fine, Aymana. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to ask one of my my own last questions to perhaps Sangan. Sangan, you have in your presentation you have outlined quite nicely the what are the opportunities you see in your sector, but perhaps you can maybe highlight one or two when it comes to Western Balkans, if there are any, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not specifically cover Western Balkans, so I'm not an expert. But I can say that as you may have seen in my presentation, our colleagues are working hard to develop a renewable support scheme in the countries, and there will be many options in line coming in next few years. So this is, I believe, a key area of focus for next business opportunities in the countries. It will be solar, wind. So if there is any interest, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to connect our colleagues in charge in the region.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sangan. And Elena, if I can ask the same question to you from agribusiness perspective.
So quite similar to what I mentioned for Central and Eastern Europe, we still see a lot of potential for consolidation across number of sectors, food retail, confectionery industry, A lot of space still to invest cross-border for a number of corporates. The region is still excellent production hub due to its very favorable labor cost compared to Western Europe, and in some countries, the general environment from the point of view of investor friendliness is improving. So from that point of view, there is still a lot of potential for new investments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Maciej, if I can ask the same question to you with regards to manufacturing and services.
I'm sorry, I lost the question in the beginning. I had some technical issues. Could you repeat?
No, that's all right. No worries. So my question is, what are the key opportunities you think for example, for foreign Austrian companies in the manufacturing and services sector in Western Balkans? If you can share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that for what it's a good region for Western European countries to invest in capacities due to favorable employee costs, and due to the fact that this is still a good region in terms of regulations, and this is part of the EU sector. So I would say that moving some of the production to Central Europe and to Western Balkans would be a good opportunity.
Thank you very much. Well, we don't really have any more questions, so I would be inclined to perhaps wrap up our question and answers session. I would like to thank obviously our audience for participating and for your questions. I would also like to thank our speakers for making themselves available and for the excellent presentations this morning. And I would also like to thank in particular Isabel, Jessica, and Silet Farkasti from our own business development team for putting this webinar together and for making sure that everything runs smoothly. And before I hand over to Isabel, I would like to maybe draw your attention to EBRD's upcoming annual meeting and business forum that is taking place on the 16th to 18th of May in the beautiful city of Samarkand in Uzbekistan, and we would like to encourage companies to explore the program. The website is already up and running to explore the program, what we already have, to register, and please do reach out if you have any questions with regards to that. Otherwise, we're very much looking forward to seeing you there. And thank you, and I'm handing over to Isabel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Aymana. Thank you for moderating the webinar. Of course, again, thanks from my side as well to all the speakers who joined today for their presentations, and also to Sillard. Thank you again. One of the questions that was asked now in the chat, or part of the questions, we're going to share, of course, not just the presentations, but also the contact details, or in general, you can always contact us, and then we will put you in touch with the relevant speaker that you have a question for, or maybe even, of course, if the question concerns, as we had today with the taxonomy, to put you in touch with the person in charge, the person who can best answer your question within the EBRD. So I hope that you have had the opportunity to take away a lot from the different presentations. And now I would just like to use the opportunity now at the end to give a quick outlook to the other events that we are planning. Again, this outlook is also part of the slides of the presentations that you will receive. So then, as you can see, they are linked, so you will find additional information on what we're planning once you have the presentations, and you can then click on the link to read a little bit more. So from my side, Again, I would like to end our webinar with a few words of thanks to the EBRD. I'm sure that we will have another webinar coming up this year, so that I will contact you in this regard. So Aymana and Siddharth, and of course all of the speakers, and of course especially our participants that joined us today, thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.